Good morning from sunny New Zealand. Sorry to put a heat wave, but it's nice and warm here. We will get to winter though. So yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. It's nice to have you here. It's great to be able to join you once again with one of our life coaches. And today we're going to be talking about boundaries. One of those things where till recently, I didn't really know what a boundary was until about 18 months ago. And there appears to be so many more who struggle with boundaries. I've had a number ask me. So today, with the help of Mandy, we're going to be able to look at that. So in case you're wondering who Mandy is, you saw a picture, let's meet her in person. Good morning, Mandy. Well, no, lunchtime, yes, afternoon.
Yeah, it's afternoon here. It's actually after lunch. So I'm from Arkansas in the U.S., Central Arkansas in the United States. So if you're from the United States, good afternoon or good morning.
Cold though.
Yeah, it is very cold here today.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. You go for it.
All righty, sure thing. I'm sorry about all that, but like I said, you take it one day at a time and you go with the flow and you just keep right on moving. I know we had first started the live stream by asking what boundaries are. A lot of times people look at boundaries and say, oh, that, boundary defines a property or a fence line or something like that, and that's the first thing people think when they think of boundaries. And in fact, that's the first definition that you find when you look up boundaries in the dictionary or online or whatever. It's a line that defines an area or a limit to a property or something. But there's another kind of boundary, and that is the limit of a subject or of an activity. And activity also includes things that you actually do and say and involve with other people. So that's what I wanted to focus with today is, the limits that we need to learn to create around ourselves that involve other people and our interactions with the other people. Because without these healthy boundaries that we create around ourselves, we are not able to be emotionally and mentally stable as human beings. As Jehovah's Witnesses, we're all involved and enwrapped in this, collective, kind of like the Borg with Star Trek. They're all in the same collective, and you have to think and act the same as everybody. There's no room for individuality at all. So without this kind of boundary for yourself, your individual self, you can't create your own identity. You can't become an individual. You have no idea who you are without creating some kind of a boundary for yourself. So that's why it is so important to learn how to create your own personal boundaries, for sure. And when you don't have these boundaries, it causes stress. You have financial burden. I mean, how many times do you find Jehovah's Witnesses that are like, barely making by, and you're like scrabbling, how do I make a car payment, or how do I fix my car when it breaks down, or how do I pay these bills, and the financial stress, because you don't have a boundary around yourself to prevent yourself from being drained financially. It's also, you have issues with like relationships with just regular people, including your spouse, because you don't have an individualistic personal boundary. So even a relationship with your spouse becomes extremely difficult, or with your children. And all of this, what does it lead to? Mental distress, mental issues, mental heartache, emotional distress, and all that other stuff. So learning how to create boundaries and what kind of boundaries you personally need, because it's all different for everybody. My boundaries are going to be completely different from my husband. They're going to be completely different from you, Shane. They're going to be completely different from my children. So learning what boundaries work for you and what kind of boundaries you need to create for relationships with other people, whether it be XJWs, new XJWs that you're meeting now, or people that are still within the religion. You have to create new boundaries with workmates, with your current spouse, or future spouse, or whatever that may be. So those are all extremely important. And the benefits that you get from it, you'll have better physical health. You'll have better emotional health when you create these boundaries. When you leave the quote unquote truth, your brain can go frazzled and say, oh my gosh, all the spirituality I just all known. And your brain goes like, bang, 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 haywire, because you no longer have the spiritual guidance. When you create boundaries, the spiritual aspect of your life will also evolve into something extremely healthy once you have those boundaries. As a JW, your spirituality was not healthy. All you did was what you were told to do.
Yeah.
And that for everything, you were told where to work. You were told how to work. You were told who to marry. You were told, where you can or can't go to school. All these things of our whole life were so controlled. So when you step away from it and create boundaries for your individuality, then your whole life starts to evolve into something that's amazingly beautiful that probably at this time you can't picture, but trust me, it gets there. So, that's the importance of having the boundaries that we have.
Okay, cool. So can I just ask a question then? If a new member, say from one of the groups, tags us as a friend, we come along and we start chatting, and then all of a sudden we find that the new friend is a little bit more intense than what we would like. What are some of the ways, seeing as we already may have, sort of let people know that we have boundaries over our time and the sorts of things we want to talk about?
That's a very, very good question. In order to, take control of those kinds of relationships, especially with other XJWs, it's like what you want to do is you want to say, okay, I have to work. I have a family I take care of. I'm only going to spend. You got to have that in your mental.
Yeah.
You have to know for yourself the answer to that. So if somebody is bombarding you, you got to know, okay, wait, where am I going to define my time? How much time am I going to allow to talk with other XJWs? How much time do I need to set aside with my own family? How much time do I allow work to take over my life? And those are how, those are how you can create those boundaries for yourself. Define how much time is my work going to take? How much time am I willing to spend scrolling on Facebook? What groups on Facebook do I want to devote my time to? Do I want to devote my time to the groups where everybody's nagging about all the past and the bad and everything we had? Or do I want to focus my time on the people that are going to help me heal? And if there's one particular person that is constantly on you and constantly sending you things, and in fact, that's one of the things I had to talk to my husband about, is when we were leaving the JWs, he was involved with the group where everybody was giving him all of the things that, everybody is focused on, all of the sexual harassment and the child molestations and all of those, tax evasion, all the stuff that they're doing behind the scenes that nobody knows about. My husband was involved and enwrapped in all that stuff. Well, after we left, I told him, why don't you just get out of the email chat that you're in? Let it be. And for a while, he was still stuck in it. And eventually he said, you know what? I'm done. And he told everybody, he said, I don't want this information anymore. Don't email it to me. And they still did. And he eventually ended up either blocking them or, just, I don't know exactly, but he finally no longer received those emails and stuff. And I think he ended up blocking most of them, but that's what we have to do. You have to set your boundaries and say, okay, look, I don't want that information anymore. I'm moving forward in my life. So if you want to talk about that stuff, that's fine, but I'm no longer involved in that. It's not going to help me go forward where I want to go in my life. I can't take that with me. So let's talk about something else. Let's talk about where we can go. If that individual doesn't want to change the subject, then it's time to let them go out of your life. It's the same thing. Are you going to take all the elders with you? No. You're going to say, oh, look, bye. See ya. You don't belong in my life anymore. So that's one of the important things about that, is letting them know, I'm done with this conversation. I'm done with this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So taking it one step further, if they go through all that and in their head they've got the mental boundaries up, they know where they want to go. What happens if they are fearful they're going to hurt somebody? What can they do? What encouragement could you give them?
Yeah. In fact, I just was messaging somebody this morning about that. So it's like a fantastic question that you're asking that, because that is the thing. We don't want to hurt the people we love the most, especially if it's, brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles, parents. We don't want to hurt the people we love the most. Okay. But here's the thing. Your whole life, you have allowed these people to dictate to you what you were going to do. You have to go to all the meetings. You have to study this way. You have to study that way. You have to comment. You have to go out in service. You have to work at this place. You can't earn more money than XYZ. But wait a minute. What if I wanted to go become a doctor? What if I wanted to be a nurse? What if I wanted to be a veterinarian? What if I want to be a lawyer? What if? That's who I am inside. You can't allow these people, because what's happening is if you are so afraid that you're going to hurt them through your decisions, they're hurting you by not allowing you to do it. And so that's one of the ways you got to look at it, is say, I'm hurting myself more than I'm hurting them. So let me create these boundaries. If it hurts them, I'm sorry, but they're not willing to grow with you, to change with you. And everybody comes in our life for a season, okay? It's kind of like your 5th grade teacher is not going to be the same college English teacher you've got, because she's not growing with you. She's not teaching you how to grow that far. They come and go as a season. So if you're at a point in your life, which you are because you're in this group, where you wanting to move forward, the best way is to say, you know what, I'm sorry this hurts you, but this is the direction I'm going. You can join me. If you want to come with me, fine. Hook my arm and come on, let's go. But if they don't want to come with you, then they're hurting not because of what you're doing, but because they're not acknowledging that they probably need to grow as well. And see, one of the examples I love sharing with people is, I don't know if you ever heard the example of how fishermen fish for crabs. This is like an amazing example. I love this example, is that a crab fisherman will get, a wire basket. They'll put just a tiny bit of food to feed like 4 or 5 crabs at the bottom of the basket, and put it in, wherever the crabs live in the ocean. I'm not a fisherman myself, but I just know how this works. And a few crabs, 2 or 3 crabs will climb in and they'll eat the food. And a few other crabs will come and join them in the basket. And before you know it, there's 10, 15 crabs in there. There's no more food, but more crabs will come and see them in there. And so they'll keep going in, even though there's no food. Well, after about 15, 20 minutes, maybe an hour, the food is gone and nothing's really keeping them in that basket, because there's no lid on it. There's no top on it. It's just this wire thing sitting on the floor of the ocean. And so there's really nothing in there keeping them. There's no food left. They can leave anytime they want. But because crabs are a unity fish or animal, they're not really a fish, but they're a unity community environment. They live in a community environment. When one crab decides, I'm hungry, I'm going to leave, he tries to climb out, and all the other crabs will pull him back down, because their mentality is, it's safer right here. They'll starve themselves to death. They'll even pull the limbs off of the crab trying to escape. And that's what happens when you're involved with the Jehovah's Witnesses. They will literally try to pull you back down, even though there's no food, even though you're dying. They could care less. And so that's what happens when you start to grow and you're going forward. You're climbing out of this basket and they're pulling your limbs down to try to keep you in with them, because they're not ready to grow. And so that's one of the things that we got to understand is, we're moving forward. We're dictating our lives and pushing our lives to, something that's way more empowering and way better than they ever could imagine. And so if they're not ready to grow with us, then at this point, who cares if they're hurting? I mean, maybe it's your mom, like with me. Yes, my mom, I'm sad to see her hurt because she refuses to contact me anymore. And she claims that, she's cries herself to sleep all the time. I'm like, well, that's your problem. I'm here. You can contact me anytime you want. I'm not the one that said you can't. They're the ones that have made that decision because you created boundaries for yourself. So don't let that focus you, or, turn your focus inward because you're growing.
Okay, so can we just drill down then a little bit? You talked about in our head getting our boundaries sorted. What are some of the practical steps to help us to get to the stage where we can work out what our boundaries are? So just be a little bit more specific.
Okay, so that's a very good point, because a lot of people don't know, how to create the boundaries. So first of all, you've got to understand what you're going to run into when you start creating the boundaries. And part of those things you're going to run into is you're going to run into the fear. Yep. You're going to run into fear of being rejected or confrontation. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen when I tell my mom I can't do that? What's going to happen when I tell my husband or, my sister that I'm not going to the meetings anymore? Oh, they're going to jump all over me. That's a fear of rejection. You're starting to create this boundary for yourself, and they're going to reject you. They're going to confront you about it. Okay. Then you're going to feel guilty because they're throwing all this stuff at you. Oh, well, you're going to die at Armageddon, and you're going to this, and you're going to that, and they're throwing all this stuff at you. Then you're going to feel guilty. And then another thing they make you feel guilty for is, well, look at me, all these things that I've done for you. Look at how you're treating me evilly now because of all these things I've done for you your whole life. And then another thing that makes it so hard is, especially for those that were raised within the JWs, you've been one ever since you were a baby, you were never taught how to create a boundary for yourself. So this is a totally new subject. It's like trying to teach a 30-year-old how to drive a car when you've been doing it since you were 12. People normally know how to create boundaries for themselves, but we as adults who are 30, 40, 50 years old, this is the first time we're doing it. Yeah. Yes, it's going to be scary. Things that you will gain from creating these boundaries for yourself. Okay, we talked about what you're going to confront. Now let's look at what's going to happen in your life when you do create the boundaries, and you will have a better self-esteem for yourself. You'll become more positive. You will no longer have the bad negative self-talk that we all throw upon ourselves inside our head. You are the one person in your life that talks to yourself more than anything else in the planet. You listen to yourself most. So if you create boundaries, the self-talk inside your head is going to start going better and become more positive instead of bad. You'll be able to start protecting yourself from emotional gaslighting or emotional blackmail. That's what I was trying to say. The emotional intrusion that we get from all this other people. When you create boundaries, that goes away. You become more of an equal to other people instead of a lesser person or a slave to them. So creating the boundary, you're now more equal with everybody else. You gain confidence like you've never had before. Now, if you'd have told me 2 years ago that I would be doing, that I would be a life coach and that I would be helping people through things in their life and that I would be doing videos left and right, podcasts, I would have looked at you and said, yeah, right. Not going to happen, because I wasn't confident enough. But then I learned how to create those boundaries. And this is, what I've become today. You become empowered to thrive in your life when you create these boundaries. So now that you know what happens, how to react to it, and what's going to happen when you do create the boundaries, let's talk about how you can actually get to those boundaries. And the first thing you want to do is define your own personal identity. What is a healthy boundary for you personally? Who do you want to become? Who are you inside? Because if you don't define that, then there's no way where you can start. It's like having a house without walls and then trying to put a yard around it. If you don't know where your house is, then there's no way you can put a yard and then fence it in. So you have to define who you are inside first. And sometimes it takes a lot of self-soul digging that we're not used to. But when you do that, then you're able to start. You can have a starting point for those boundaries. The second thing you want to do is once you know who you are, you need to be able to communicate this with others. You need to say, this is who I am. This is where I'm going. This is what I want from my life. You want to become a veterinarian? Then I want to be a veterinarian. You want to become a life coach? I want to be a life coach. And this is how I can do this. And communicate with that other people. And make it really, really simple. You don't have to over-explain yourself. You don't have to overcomplicate it. You don't have to, become like a dictionary or an encyclopedia about what you want in your life. You don't have to explain reasons why you're doing it. You know why, but the rest of the world doesn't have to know why. Just tell them, this is what I'm doing, period. Kind of like a child wanting to run after their ball. You tell them, don't run after the ball because a car's going to hit you. Very simple. You don't have to go and say, well, sweetie, if you run out into the car and if you run out into the street after your ball, then there's going to be this big brown truck coming down the street that's not going to see you because you're small and they could run over you. You're not going to explain it that way to a child. So why try to explain things like that to somebody else? Just make it simple. Don't run after the ball. A car will hit you. Bam. Easy. The next thing you want to do is you want to make sure you're going to set up the consequences for what's going to happen when people cross those new boundaries you've created for yourself. So what's important on that? If they come and tell you, you can't do this or you're hurting me, say, well, I'm sorry if I'm hurting you, but this is who I am. I saw somebody comment this morning, again, that they were trying to create themselves a happier lifestyle, and a relative had posted to them or messaged them, who cares if you're happy? Well, excuse me, I do.
Yeah.
You may not care if I'm happy, but I care if I'm happy. So when you get comments like that, well, who cares? I care. And that's all you need to let them know. Here's the boundary. I care what happens to me. I care how I feel. And when you create those kinds of boundaries and they realize, oops, she's not backing down, he's not backing down, he's not going to crumple like he usually does, then they realize, oh, well, they may panic because they're losing their control, but who cares? Who cares if they lose control over you, because you are you and you care about you. And that's what you want to focus on. And like I said, again, don't feel like you need to explain all of your reasons. When you were right before you left or right after you left the JWs, you felt like you had to tell everybody about all of the, child molestation and all the bad things and blah, blah. Who listened to you? On the way out themselves. So don't try to explain yourself for why you're creating your boundaries. Do it and make it very simple, like you would to a 3-year-old. Treat them like they would be like they're a 3-year-old. This is my boundary. This is what I'm doing. Bam. Don't over-explain yourself. Focus on yourself. Don't focus on what their reaction is. Don't focus on what their, thoughts are or whatever, because you're doing this for you, not for them.
Yep.
Eventually, it might be good for them because they saw you do it and they saw your life benefit because of it. So maybe they'll follow your example later. But until you do this, that ain't never going to happen. So, and the last thing that I want to share of utmost importance is you have to state why these boundaries are important to you. If you don't state why they're important to you and you don't have that firm in your head, then nobody's going to respect your boundaries. And that's the bottom line. You've got to know what is important to you, who you are inside, and when you have that firm set, then people are going to start respecting you. Even if they hurt from it, they'll start respecting you.
So is there anything wrong in having a very close friend who really supports you and telling them what you'd like to accomplish?
Oh, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it at all. In fact, if you have a close friend who's been supportive of you, let them know. They can help you.
Right.
I've had one friend of mine who she didn't know it at the time. And I just recently told her, and it brought her to tears. But she didn't know it at the time. But during my exodus, she, by example, showed me what it was, one, to be a true friend, two, how to have personal boundaries. She became like my teacher, which she
Nice.
didn't even know she was. But I looked at her and I was like, well, how is she so confident and successful? And, you know, and I just kind of imitated things that she did and things she said. And she guided me through the whole process without even realizing it. I could have probably done it a little bit quicker if I had somebody say, okay, do this, X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah. Kind of like what I'm doing with this. You know, I didn't have anybody detailing that out to me. I had to figure it out by example myself. But through her example, I learned how to have these kinds of boundaries and how to become a close friend and in communication with her and stuff. Yes, eventually I told her, yeah, look, this is what I'm wanting to do with my life. And she was like, go for it, girl. She says that fits you perfectly. You need to do that. And, you know, she was very supportive of everything I did throughout the whole Exodus process and finding myself and all of that. So yeah, if there's somebody out there that you are in communication with, that you kind of feel close with, connect with them. Let them know what you're doing. Let them know how you need help. And absolutely, they'll be more supportive than you can ever even think of right now in your imagination.
Good advice. So going back to the community crab pot, we're setting all these boundaries. Say if we're one of those crabs in that pot and we're getting out and then trying to get out, what can we do to stay motivated? So we've set the boundaries and we're struggling still. What can we do to stay motivated so that we can get out of that community crab pot, as it were?
Knowing who you are. Again, it goes back to finding your identity and knowing who you are. One of the other things that I like to really, really, truly think about is you are not responsible for the actions and thoughts of the other person. All of those other crabs and all those other JWs down here trying to keep you in, you are not responsible for the way they're acting, but you are 100% responsible for yourself. So if you know that you no longer serve in the life that you have right now or whatever, and you want to go into the, you know, more empowered, thriving life, then you're 100% responsible for getting yourself there. But you're not even half of a decimal of a percent responsible at all for other people. So if you feel trapped still, just know you got to focus on yourself. You got to focus on moving yourself forward. And the only way to do that is to break through whatever bubble these people have put around you. You got to break through that bubble. And once you do, no matter how much they try to mentally or emotionally tell you that you're hurting them, you're breaking up the family, you're you know, gonna ruin everything in paradise or whatever, that's not true. That's all just blackmail baloney that is designed to keep you inside their bubble. And it doesn't matter how much it hurts them. You're not responsible for them hurting. You're responsible for your own hurt. So if you want to stop the hurt, you want to grow forward and move into an empowered life, then you got to take responsibility for that and let them be who they are. If they want to hurt, that's on them.
Cool. So we've covered quite a bit already. Are there any points? I know I asked a few questions. Did I take you off track anywhere that you'd like to touch base on some of the points you've got written down on the paper in front of you?
Learn to be yourself. I'd like to say just learn to be yourself. Sometimes that is the biggest struggle that we have to deal with when we're leaving, is just to learn to be ourselves, because you've always been taught, especially for those that were raised as a JW, you don't know how to be yourself because you were always, part of a collective, part of the same thing as everybody else. So learning to be yourself is the biggest, hardest thing to do. Once you learn your own identity, and once you learn who you are, and I get people telling me all the time, well, how do I do that? Well, what did you dream of when you were a kid that people told you couldn't do? What did you dream of as a teenager? What did what were your intense desires when you were little? And from that, when you dig back into that, because those dreams are still there, they've been, hidden over layer after layer after layer. When you start to uncover and explore those things, you find yourself. When I was younger, man, I wanted to play the drums. I wanted to get into music so much. I haven't gotten back into it yet because I started focusing more on helping other people. But when I started focusing on helping other people, I found my passion. I found what I really, really loved. And I remembered when I was younger, as a teenager, man, I was out there helping people left and right, doing all kinds of stuff. Giving the elderly food and going shopping for people and just doing everything I can and giving positive words of encouragement to everybody I knew. But it was discouraged to a certain extent. It was like, you need to focus on pioneering instead. Don't worry about this and don't go over here and do that. You need to pioneer. Use your time to pioneer. That was, where they tried to channel my energies to. But when I started digging deep into that passion of helping other people again, then I realized, yeah, this is who I am. And I don't have to hide it anymore. I don't have to bury it under pioneering anymore. So that's the kind of thing that you can do too, is dig deep into what do you like to do, whether it's right now, what are some hobbies that you have? You can turn, especially right now with this pandemic, you can turn your hobby into a job and earn a living off of some stuff, right? So just dig deep and think, who am I deep down inside? What do I really, truly like to do? And be yourself. Don't be afraid to be yourself anymore. You're not under an envelope of what people tell you can or can't do anymore. So learn to be yourself. And that's when you start doing that, then you start creating the healthy boundaries that you need to move forward.
Very practical. So if somebody wants to touch base with you and have a chat and just get some more practical steps, how can different ones contact you?
I am on Facebook and LinkedIn, and you can look me up under Mandy Bishop, both Facebook and LinkedIn. My Instagram is mbcoolkitty with K's, at mbcoolkitty. And I do have a website that I've just put up probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And it is Mandy, it's, like I said, I just put it up, is Cool Kitty Coaching at GoDaddy or .godaddy.com. So coolkittycoaching.godaddy.com is my website. So you can find my email through that. And, just feel free to send me a friend request. If you want to send me a friend request, though, and it's specifically to connect with me, because I get like 20 friend requests a day. So if you specifically want to connect with me, make sure you send me a message along with the friend request. Otherwise, I may or may not accept it because I don't know you from, the scammer on here, the network marketer is trying to send me a request or whatever. So if you really, truly want to connect with me, send me a message along with the request so that I know, why you're sending me the friend request through social media. But yeah, I'm more than willing to be open with anybody and connect and help you move forward. I do free coaching calls, one-on-one coaching calls. I schedule free calls with people. So that's my way of giving back to the community.
Cool. And just out of interest, where did Cool Kitty name come from?
Uh, it's just one of those things that kind of developed along the way. I am a cat lover. I got 6 cats, and drive my yeah. Everybody's like, "What?" I'm totally a cat lover. And one of my emails just happened to be called Cool Cat. It had my name and Cool Cat, and it just kind of developed over that after a while and became Cool Kitty. So everything's got Cool Kitty in it, but it's different because it's with K's instead of C's to make it completely different. So that's just where it comes out at.
Well, that's cool. It's nice
like
to know.
Become my signature. Yeah, become my signature.
Oh, very good. Well, thank you for your time today, Mandy. Certainly appreciated it. Mandy is part of the Dare to Dream in the group, with the private group, where if you want to join, there's the other coaches that who we've had on the live streams. They're there as well. So we want to say thank you for those ones who have been here with us today. Those ones who will watch it later, we might edit the video and put it back up and get rid of the little technical hitch.
Yeah, my bad. Sorry for the technical issues.
That is fine. We got it sorted, and we've certainly appreciated the good value and practical steps that you've shared with us. And so, in way of conclusion, we've just got a video to highlight the aspect of the Dare to Dream group and what it can do, which works alongside with our Life After Jehovah's Witness Facebook group. So thanks for being here. Thanks for your comments. We look forward to seeing you on the next one. Just to let you know, next weekend, we'll put the time up. We've got a Zoom meeting. And then the week after, we've got a special guest. I say they're all special because they really are. They're wonderful people who come on who are wanting to help. This one, I'm not going to tell you who they are, but we will have a clip coming to indicate, and you might be able to work out, I'll give you a clue, who she is. But it will be well worth listening. So once again, thanks for being here. Let's say bye for now, and we'll see you next time. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Keep safe, keep warm, and we'll look forward to catching up again soon. Thanks. Catch you later. Bye.